Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video I'll be giving you guys my top 5 list for the best specs in World of Warcraft BFA right now that are ultimately the best for 1v1 dueling situations. Duels have been a staple of World of Warcraft, and even today, outside of Stormwind and Armory, you'll find plenty of people out there ready for some 1v1 duels. If you guys were looking at what is the best class for PvP that has a lot of healing, sustainability, and survivability in a 1v1 situation, maybe something you can use out in the world or even in few rare occasions and battlegrounds, then this video will be for you. We will be taking a look at all these different specs in the game and figuring out which ones are the top 5 best for 1v1 situations. Now, I know that the game is very much rock, paper, scissors. Certain classes and specs simply counter others, so this video was really hard to make as there's no one class at the very top that is the best by default. It takes a seasoned and experienced player, versatile and knowledgeable in their class, to make the greatest in that class. But in this video we'll be taking a look at all the different specs in the game and which ones are competing ahead of others in purely 1v1 situations. On the number 5 in the list we have the Survival Hunter. Survival Hunter is a spec that's basically a Swiss Army knife. There are so many different tools, but how you use them is key. Survival Hunters come with different utilities in terms of how you want to deal with your enemy. You can use traps in order to CC, slow, and even root the enemy. You can use your pet and pet damage to deal good damage as well as a stun. You have a lot of abilities that are ranged even though you're primarily a melee class. You have an assortment of abilities you can use to help you win, but those abilities are no easy by any measure. You have traps which give you crowd control and slows. You have your pet that brings damage as well as a stun. You have your damage abilities over time. You have your melee abilities. You have a variety of different heals and variety of different defensives. How you use those abilities as a survival hunter is going to depend on the competition. Maybe your enemy is a rogue, so your rotation will change. Maybe your enemy is a warlock, so of course you're gonna adjust your playstyle. Maybe it's a paladin, so now you'll need to save your traps for certain key abilities. But regardless, Survival Hunters definitely is one of those classes that gives you the tools but doesn't make every win easy, which is why I will put them in the number 5 list, because it takes a really experienced player to make them work well. Next class on the list is gonna be Retribution Paladins. Now, I think everyone can agree that Retribution Paladins have intense amounts of healing. Any class that can stand still and heal themselves to full is gonna make it a lot easier in duels. You just gotta get yourself a little bit of CC, throw a few heals, and your health is back up to full. Paladins are a little bit spooky to duel up against, especially when they pop wings. When Avenging Wrath goes off, not only does their healing increase, but also the damage. And trust me, Paladins can really slap you around. The way Paladins are set up is they have insanely strong defensive abilities with a very long cooldown. Abilities like Blessing of Protection and Bubble are immunities, Blessing of Protection being only a physical immunity that lasts for a short time and gives the Paladin free reign to do whatever you want. How you use those two major abilities is going to determine how the duel will go. The amount of damage Paladins deal is also a little bit nuts, and they have a lot of control with how and when they want to deal their damage. That combined with insanely good healing, where if they can find themselves a little bit of a break, get behind a pillar, re-heal to full, then Paladins might be able to stabilize enough to come back into a duel once their big cooldowns come back up off of CD. Now, Paladins are not all that easy, and people have always told me that Dalaran Paladins are overpowered. I've never agreed with the notion. I always said the Paladins are really strong, but far from overpowered. A class being strong is fine, but Paladins do have a crux, an Achilles heel, or rather a heel that doesn't function whatsoever. Paladins are very immobile. They have one pony, a couple of hand of freedoms from time to time, but for the most part, Paladins' mobility is very minor. Which is why the next class on the list is gonna be the number 3. If you think Paladins are gods, then you should take a look at Arcane Mages. Arcane Mage is probably the most mobile class in the game right now. While Fire is all about big crits and Frost is all about slowing down the enemy, Arcane instead chooses to go for tricky playstyle and mobility. The tricky playstyle has to do with slowing down your enemy and chiseling away at them slowly over time, with abilities like Nether Tempest and Arcane missiles, which will follow the enemy even if they hide behind a pillar. Arcane Mage advantage is the fact that you have Blink as well as an ability to reverse a Blink. If you decided that you need to back up, it'll teleport you back to your last Blink's rotation and it'll give you your Blink back. That combined with Shimmer, which gives you 2 Blinks, it allows you a lot of movement all across the map and can basically let you play monkey in the middle with whoever you are dueling. On top of that, Arcane Mages are actually pretty tanky. That's another class that's not really a heal-based class, that doesn't have a healing off-spec, doesn't have an ability to cast a heal, but their absorbs are actually pretty nutty. The amount of damage the shield absorbs, if the mage is careful, can be just enough to allow the mage enough damage and enough output in order to survive almost any attack. That combined together with Prismatic Barrier and the insane mobility lets the mage have all the tools they need in order to win, as long as the enemy doesn't get to touch him all that much. So for an Arcane Mage, control is the key. Not only are you controlling where you are positionally, but also control of your enemy. And if things get ever too spicy for you, you can always cool off with a nice ice block to reset the duel. All that combined with the ability to literally disappear and go invisible gives them that edge to be this trickster type of class that actually performs really well in duels. Before we give you guys the number 2 and number 1 of this list, I do want to make a few honorable mentions for a few specs that also perform really well, especially after the patch 8.1 update. With the recent updates in patch 8.1, Unholy Death Knights became a lot more memorable, as now they can stand a little bit closer toe to toe with everybody else. Now, Unholy DKs have a fair amount of self-healing, especially if you're able to rotate for your builds. With certain honor talents, you're able to generate insane amounts of damage or insane amounts of defensive output. Unholy Death Knights also can curb any of healing classes and all of their heals with the spam of necrotic strikes, and the damage output is consistent, making them a lot stronger as of patch 8.1. Not an easy win by any measure, but definitely a lot more powerful. Elemental Shamans should be mentioned as well. With the change to the Lightning Lasso doing 40% of enemy's health, this gives Elemental Shamans a chance in 5v5 1v1 duels, as well as duels in general. If you're an Ele Shaman, you no longer have to be bullied by all these other classes. Now you can actually do some damage yourself and pump big numbers. Finally, Demonology Warlock is another class that should be considered as well. With the ability to summon pets from around the corner, you can keep yourself safe while your minions do most of the work for you. The spec is very much about trying to prolong the game and make it an insufferable experience for the enemy player, trying to whittle them down over time until they eventually succumb to all these armies and armies of demons that the Warlock possesses. Back to our list, we have number 2 class on this list, and that's going to be Assassination Rogues. This spec has insane amounts of opener damage, sustain, as well as burst, and of course it is a rogue, which comes with Garrotes, Stealth, Vanish, Evasion, Cloak of Shadows, Smoke Bomb, and Blind. I mean, come on, rogues have always been cheaters in PvP. They always cheated in duels and arenas. Every time you're about to finish off a rogue, he'll always vanish away and you will never find him until a few seconds later when he'll come back with seemingly full health. Every time you want to deal any magic damage to the rogue, Cloak of Shadows is always going to protect him, and every time you get a big finisher kill, execute on the rogue, there's always going to be some sand flying in your face with a blind. Since all rogues are cowards, all of them are going to run around pillar humping it into the infinity until you're out of cooldowns, and this is where they will come and finish you off. Now, as a rogue main, I understand why the spec might feel very overwhelming for a lot of players to face. The ability of stealth and being able to reset on an enemy, the barrage of CC the rogue brings, as well as the consistent damage overall, all of it is a very, very deadly combo. Potentially all 3 specs of rogues are really good at duels, but I had to choose Assassination because it is the one spec that deals the most amount of damage. If you're out of a trinket and you don't have a bubble or an ice block, the rogue is just going to throw you in Stunlock, Vendetta, and Venom, and you're basically dead. There's very little to do against rogues since they're so hyper offensive with so many defensive abilities that you can just pop and keep trucking damage into your enemy. This makes a lot of rogues very cocky because they're so powerful, so I'm pretty sure most of you guys can agree they're definitely very much a nuisance and very, very hard to fight against in 1v1 situations. Finally, I had to give the number 1 spot to Feral Druids. Honestly, this one was very simple. I mean, it is basically a rogue, except as a cat form, with all your bleed-based abilities just like a rogue, with stealth just like a rogue, and with all of your general CC from your ranged kicks to your bash stuns. So yeah, it's basically a rogue with a tail. But Feral Druids are a little bit different than rogues in terms of their damage over time ability. Once they put ribs, that's it. They don't even need to be auto-attacking you. They can bleed you up, run behind a pillar, put you in a root, reset, and do it over and over and over again. If they are ever in a bad situation, they can just swap into bear form. So imagine a rogue taking a lot of beating, and all of a sudden he becomes a warrior, plated with armor, just simply taking less damage just because they switch their forms. And if you ever let him escape from you, Feral Druids have insane amounts of healing from the restoration tree, being able to get their health up to full in just a few globals, so it honestly feels like you're fighting against a restoration druid. So it's a rogue with healing of a paladin, so yeah, it is probably the biggest nightmare to anybody coming across these guys. Now, I don't really know exactly how easy druids are. That's one of the classes that I haven't got to level in BFA quite yet, but they do look fairly simple. If they're anything like Legion, then they take a bit of practice and a little bit of attention in terms of rotating their cooldowns, but the amount of damage they do right now in BFA and how much healing they do, they definitely do look like the gods of duels with the best of both worlds, a rogue with healing. Like, it just sounds like the most insane thing in the world, but it is how it is, which is why I had to put Ferals in the number 1 spot, because so far out of all the 5 5-1-1 duels, whether Ferals are buffed or nerfed, I always see a Feral go into the arena and perform admirably well, whether they want to prolong the game like a rogue stealthing around all day, or if they want to come out in the open and deal damage back to the enemy. It doesn't seem to make a difference, as they'll always have their health at full. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts about my list of 1 through 5 top best specs in the game that are designed for 1v1 duels. And if you guys want to make your own list, write me down in the comments below how would you rank the best top 5 classes. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. This channel has been having insane amounts of growth thanks to you guys. And hopefully this video gave you guys a few ideas maybe on a next alt that you want to level in the future. Hope you guys are having a good one. Happy New Year, and I'll see all of you in the next one.